East for Education Excellence highlights the immense potential of the East in becoming a global hub for learning and innovation. आज हम लोग के जितने भी सेशंस होंगे उसमें आप लोगों को एकेडमिया एक्सपर्ट्स, स्पीकर्स एंड इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट्स से बहुत नॉलेज मिलेगा, जिससे कि आपको समझ में आएगा कि वाई ईस्ट इज द बेस्ट. So as we commence this enlightening journey,
या तो उसके पास कर रहे हो.
First, we always do our traditional light lamping ceremony, which is a symbol of wisdom, knowledge and prosperity. I would like to respectfully invite our esteemed dignitaries to join us on the stage for this auspicious moment. Shri Sushil Poddar, President MASA and CWBTA, Mr. Vibhor Tandon, Vice President MASA, Shri Vinod Sancheti, Guest of Honor, Shri Naradra Arjanji, Guest of Honor, Ms. Ina Bose, Convener and Director, Academia Connect for MASA, I would again request the volunteers to please call everyone inside since we are starting off. I would request Vikash Tibrewal ji and Pradeep ji to please come on the dais, and Shri Devender ji and Ujjwal ji from Central Bank of India to please join us for the auspicious lamp lighting ceremony. As we move on for the lamp lighting ceremony and wait for our esteemed guests, any program to be successful, we must remember Lord Ganesha, and I would start with a small shlok of Ganesh ji. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvikhnam Kuru me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shanti. Please join us. This is called innovation and creativity.
शत्रुबुद्धि विनाशाय
After the auspicious lamp lighting, we will all rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
भारत माता की I would now like to invite Shri Sushil Poddar, President of MASA and CWBTA, to formally welcome everyone present here. Shri Poddar is a true advocate for entrepreneurship and education, and his leadership has been instrumental in driving impactful initiatives across the region.
गुड मॉर्निंग, सुप्रभात, नमस्कार, नमस्कार আর সবাইকে আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা। Respected dignitaries, esteemed guests, educators, industry leaders and dear friends. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to look east for education, excellence and initiative by MASA, MSME and startup accelerators. In association with Confederation of West Bengal Trade Association CWBTA, this event is a crucial step towards our vision of making Eastern India a hub for education excellence and global opportunities. जैसे कि कहा गया है, शिक्षा सबसे शक्तिशाली हथियार है जिसे आप दुनिया को बदल सकते हैं. Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. For this, I must give thanks to Ina Madam to take this initiative. और माशा के जन्मदाता मिस्टर विभोर टंडन एंड प्रज्ञा झुंझुनवाला जी, मैं चाहूँगा इनके लिए जोरदार तालियों से इन तीनों का स्वागत किया जाए. Because we all know to start something, किसी चीज़ को शुरुआत करने के लिए मेहनत बहुत करनी पड़ती है. सेम जैसे एजुकेशन में धीरे पढ़ाई में, और हम लोग जैसे मालूम है कि हम लोग जैसे कि कहते हैं IAS ऑफिसर्स बिहार और यूपी और अभी राजस्थान से भी काफ़ी आ रहे हैं मारवाड़ की तरफ से, तो कहावत है कि उसको बंद दरवाजे में 3-3 साल पढ़ना पड़ता है। तो वही मेहनत प्रज्ञा जी और विभोर जी ने माशा को शुरुआत करने में बहुत बड़ी मेहनत की है, और एक अच्छी शुरुआत है कि आज हम लोग ये प्रोग्राम देख पा रहे हैं। माशा हैज़ बिलीव्ड इन एम्पावरिंग द यूथ through education and entrepreneurship. Today, we bring together the brightest minds to discuss how we can prepare our students for the global market and transform the East into a center of educational excellence. We all know how is the good demand of the Indian brains in entire world, everywhere you go, where top 100 companies, top 100 corporates of the world, they are having the Indian brains in the top seats. So, because why? Because of the good education. I believe the very good education is here in India. আমাদের পূর্বাঞ্চল শুধু ভৌগোলিক পরিচয় নেই, এটা আমাদের সংস্কৃতি, আমাদের জনন আর আমাদের ভবিষ্যৎ। We all know, we people from Bengal, আমরা বাঙালি, সব সময় পড়াশোনার মধ্যে আমাদের ফোকাস থাকে। যদি past 75 or 8 years, I have not seen 75 years past, but we all know कि how big we are in education. सब समय first priority is education in our Bengali family. This is true. Our history is not just a geographical identity; it is our culture, our knowledge, and our future. As we embark on this journey today, I urge everyone to dream big and act with courage and embrace the power of education to shape a better tomorrow. যেরকম আমরা বলি, जैसे कि कहा जाता है कि सपना वो नहीं जो हम सो के देखते हैं। স্বপ্ন সেটা নেই যে আমরা ঘুমিয়ে দেখি, অনেক সময় খুব डिफरेंट टाइप विच वी हैव नेवर थॉट कि ऐसा कुछ हो सकता है या हमने कभी कुछ पास्ट नहीं किया है, वो सो के सपना आता है। सपना वो है जो हम जाग कर देते हैं, और वो सपना हमें सफल बनाना है कि जिससे हम लोग अपने इस एजुकेशन इसको, और माशा के थ्रू, हमने रिसेंटली माशा के थ्रू 15 दिन पहले ISI में प्रोग्राम किया था, सुपर सक्सेस प्रोग्राम हुआ था, और आज हम फिर एक प्रोग्राम कर रहे हैं। फिर आने वाले दिनों में हमारे प्रोग्राम पाइपलाइंस हैं, तो डिफरेंट चीज़ में आप देखिएगा कि हमारे आपको प्रोग्राम्स मिलेंगे। आई ऑल्सो एक्सप्रेस माई ग्रेटिट्यूड टू आवर कन्वीनर ईना बोस जी, डायरेक्टर ऑफ एकेडमिक कनेक्ट, हुज डेडिकेशन हैज मेड दिस इवेंट पॉसिबल। আমাদের সকলকে, আপনাদের সকলকে আন্তরিক ধন্যবাদ। আসুন আমরা একসাথে একটা শিখরে আলোকিত ভবিষ্যতের তৈরি করি। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ।
So don't you think that was an amazing welcome address? Yes. And we are all feeling the warmth from the president's mouth, right? जब एक president invite करता है तो वो बहुत warmth के साथ सबको invite करता है, and he's also shared कि what is the program about. And I'm very happy to see so many young friends here. I can guarantee you that after this session, आपके मन में जो confusion रहता है ना कि हम आगे क्या करना चाहिए, क्या करना है, आज हमारे साथ इतने अच्छे panel of speakers हैं, इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट हैं, द होल आइडिया कि वी नीड टू एक्चुअली ब्रिज द गैप बिटवीन इंडस्ट्री एंड एकेडमिया, उसका भी ये एंडेवर है। दिस इनिशिएटिव इज ऑल्सो ब्रिजिंग द गैप बिटवीन दैट, एंड मासा इज ऑल अबाउट एक्सेलरेशन I would request Shri Vibhor Tandon, who is the Vice President of MASA, to please come on the dais and share the vision of MASA with you. And I would request him to come. He is also the Treasurer for Calcutta Management Association. He has been 20 years into exchange and he has a vast knowledge of business, academia and industry as a whole. So coming from him, I'm sure you will get enlightened.
Respected Sri Sushil Poddar, President of MASA, respected committee members and senior dignitaries from CWPTA, members from reputed institutions, members from our partner institutions such as Central Bank, ladies and gentlemen, and children, it's a pleasure to welcome you on the very important occasion of Global Conclave, which is primarily focused on education. When we were young, 25-30 years back, we used to have almost everybody in the house, in the family, used to have a dream that we will go to the US to study, the US to work. Today, we are very, very lucky and we should be thankful to God, to our great country and to the state that today things have reversed. In the next 10 years, you will see people across the country, across the world, looking forward to come to Bharat, to India, to work. There will be a huge queue of students across the world waiting to get admission in Indian universities. The world has changed, the world is changing, and we are looking forward to host probably one of the largest ecosystems of business, academia, technology, and of course, culture. We look forward to this great, we are actually living in great times, right? And we should be very grateful to that, towards God and towards the entire country for that. As a matter of fact, there's a small shlok which I remember, which says, Parimitam Bhutam, Aparimitam Bhavyam, which says that the future is unlimited. The future is Bhavya. So let me welcome all of you to the new Bharat, to the new Bengal, and to the new East, where tremendous opportunities in terms of education, in terms of career, in terms of industry, and in terms of prosperity. Let us join together to be part of this lovely era which is moving towards prosperity by virtue of having and the blessings of the entire education fraternity. Thank you very much and a big welcome to all.
So friends, I am delighted to tell you and share with you कि आज हम लोग के बीच में विनोद कुमार जी जो IAS ऑफिसर हैं and he is the education secretary for the state. He will be soon joining us. और उसके पहले without further ado, let us move on to our panel discussion. And हम लोग का ये प्रयास रहेगा कि language should not be a barrier. Whatever language is more reaching you, जो आपको reach करे, हम लोग उसी language में बात करेंगे. तो आपको कहीं भी कोई परेशानी भी हो तो आप एकदम आराम से हैंड रेज करके बोल सकते हैं, नो इश्यूज. सो वी मूव ऑन टू द पैनल एंड आज हमारे जो पैनल में जो स्पीकर, जो की नोट स्पीकर हैं, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल लेट मी टेल यू द टॉपिक. टुडेज थीम इज लुक ईस्ट फॉर एजुकेशन एक्सेलेंस एंड this is the session of making our students ready for the global market. एकदम आपके लायक सेशन है because sometimes we don't even know what are the skills that we need to learn. Sometimes we also have so many of faculty members today from different colleges and schools. So we need to know actually कि वहाँ need gap कहाँ है. Why the students after their completion of education are still searching for jobs or thinking about what to do. So just to complete the knowledge gap, making our students ready for the global market is the panel discussion that we are going to have today. The theme speaker of this session is Dr. Partho Ghosh. Anyone of you heard about Dr. Partho Ghosh? Thank you. He is a very, very renowned name. He is chairman of the Boston Pledge and Professor Practice Tufts University. He is ex-partner of McKinsey and Company. Partho Ghosh is a true global citizen. He is a policy advisor and a strategist for corporate and governments. IIT Kharagpur में Partho Ghosh Leadership Academy चलती है. So aren't we all privileged to have him speaking to us? He'll be joining us online today, and here we have his address to all of us. And I'm telling you friends, listen very carefully. इसमें एक word बहुत relevant है.
Greetings from Boston. Thank you for inviting me to this very important initiative, Global Education Conclave 2025. It is indeed a great privilege and a special honor for me to be with you to share my thoughts on how our current education systems should be reset, reformed, or reframed to prepare students in our education system to be effective, competitive in a globalizing socioeconomic dynamics, which is increasingly uncertain and definitely unpredictable. In that spirit, in the next 15 minutes, I will try to answer three essential questions. First, how will the global economic system, the landscape, change because of several mega shifts or disruptions that are all happening at the same time? Building on that, the second question I would like to answer, as a result, what will be the profile of a successful individual, whether he is in business, in government, in academia, to be able to navigate through such disruptions and be an effective member of the global society. As a result, the third question that I would like to tackle, perhaps that's the central piece of today's discussion, accordingly, how must our education system change, shaped, or reframed so that we could indeed prepare students who could meet the new requirements of the 21st century. Now, obviously, discussing these 3 points, there could be multiple perspectives, and I will try to synthesize as much as possible all the different perspectives to begin a dialogue which will bring the necessary change in the global education system, and definitely the meeting being organized in Calcutta, which has been the center of education, could begin a new journey. We have to think of how we prepare individuals who could deal with this challenge, and international relationships are shifting. Right now, as we talk, as you know, there's a fundamental change taking place in the United States, his relationship with China, his relationship with his neighbors, Canada, Mexico, and including Europe. So new kinds of alliances getting formed, many old alliances are being questioned, and obviously that puts all of us across the world in a state of flux, state of uncertainty, but that's becoming the reality, and we have to prepare our students to deal with such uncertain moments. So that leads to the second question. If that is the environment that's going to emerge in the next 5 to 10 to 15 to 25 years, what would be the nature of the mental makeup, the mindset of an individual working in this environment? And I am thinking of this with a two-dimensional framework. One dimension or one vector would be what I will call the skill dimension, and think of the two end of this vector. One side I will call hard skills, the other side I will call soft skills. And the second vector is about the mindset, attitude, and etiquettes. Internal, how do we connect with ourselves inside, and how do we connect with the world outside? So both these vectors will be very important. And I'll try to talk about each of these vectors in terms of trying to profile a successful individual in this new environment. When I think of vector one, the skill vector, let's think of the hard skills. The critical thinking, problem solving capability would be extremely important. Because the world would get disrupted, economic models, business models would get disrupted. So any individuals to survive and enjoy this disruption, if I may use the term, he has to have that problem-solving, critical thinking capability.
We are going to just share the essence of this video with you, and since you are all registered with your email IDs, we will share the entire video's link on your phones. Do see it, because each and every line is very relevant. Now, there are some very important parts which we are going to highlight.
How to help and create an immersive environment as opposed to short reel social media environment. And the third point I'd like to make is, which I touched on earlier, that at the highest level we also have to think of the velocity of learning, how to develop the curriculum, the courses, the content,
all the faculty sitting here, this is a very relevant point, that how to actually create the velocity of curriculum. This is really paradigm shifting view.
Student interaction and the educational ecosystem. So the velocity of learning, unlearning, and relearning is significantly increased. So that is at the highest level, the three objectives of the education system should be. Now I'll talk about what I will call the strategic triangle: the content, the faculty-student interaction, and the education system, ecosystem. Now, how any centers of learning should develop is global ecosystem. So first, let me talk about the content. First, you have to make the curriculum significantly innovation. The curriculum should be continuously innovated. It should not be the same syllabus which was developed 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago. I think every semester, maybe that's too frequent, maybe every year, a curriculum has to be fundamentally re-engineered, innovated, so that it is in tune with time. The nature of the education has to be interdisciplinary. Though I may focus on physics, but I should understand chemistry or humanities, so I can broaden the mind while I'm deepening my knowledge in physics. The classroom process should be significantly more experienced. Second corner of the strategic triangle, definitely more ventilation. So we can breathe ideas from outside, solve problems in the ecosystem, and become part of the ecosystem. Similarly, we should think of global exchange programs. And as soon as we think of global exchange program, we have to think of what do we have which the other universities would appreciate.
Poonam, our young MC, to please take forward the session.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to invite Professor Dhrupajyoti Chattopadhyay to the stage. To felicitate, I would also like to call Ms. Ira Shaha.
Mrs. Ira Shaha, Mr. Shushil Poddar, our President of MASA, and Ina Bose Madam, the convener of the program, to facilitate him.
Professor Dhrupajyoti Chattopadhyay is the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sister Nivedita University from January 2020 and was the founder Vice Chancellor of Amity University, Kolkata from 2003 to 2007. He was the Pro Vice Chancellor of the university from 2008 till 2015. He was also the Director at the Center for Research in Nanoscience and Nanotechnology at the university from 2007 till 2015. Professor Chattopadhyay has a research experience for more than 37 years and a teaching experience for more than 41. I would also like to invite Partho S. Ghosh. Dr. Partho.
So I would request Mr. Vibhor Tandon also to join us on the stage for felicitations.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I would like to request him to speak as the keynote speaker and address the audience.
A very good late morning to all of you. Let me first apologize to all of you for my delay, but I just want to share that the interesting part of this delay may be related to something what we are going to discuss today. There is one national conference I have to inaugurate in the morning, which is by the Law Department of Sister Nivedita University on the mental health. Now, you know that that's from the Law Department, so there are a lot of judges and legal personalities over there. And while interacting with this, the thing what is coming to my mind that when you talk about the Lookist for education excellence, the education excellence is becoming quite a bit of related with mental health also. The mental health is becoming one of the major challenge. I really want to thank Mr. Vibhor Tandon for giving me this opportunity, and obviously Madam Ina Bose, who is after me, so that I should come over here. And one of my favorite topic is when the national education policy is being announced, is it is very much coupled with transforming the education. And so transforming education to adapt to the current technological advancements is becoming very, very important. And when we give stress on this, it also gets coupled with our concept of mental health of the students also. Now, today you are going to listen to a large number of very important educationists and other personalities, and I would like to thank all of them for being part of this program. But there are a couple of points I just wanted to share with you about my understanding about the transforming education. Now, you know that there is a rapid pace of technological advancements. And in the last 4 years of time, we have seen there are so many different things are coming, which makes what Dr. Partha Ghosh is making, it's really, the education becomes highly dynamic in nature. And while we're talking about the dynamic nature of this, there are certain fundamentally altered various aspects of human life which is actually being transformed, not only education. Now, when we're talking about the traditional education, now these traditional education models, while effective for a long period of time, which struggle to keep up with the digital age's evolving needs. Now, that's why the question comes about the transforming education. Because with the evolution, there are a lot of different things are changing. And specifically when we looked at the 2019 COVID pandemic and the post-pandemic time, the challenge is actually act as a catalyst to understand the importance of why we need the transforming education. Now, the transforming education is very much linked, and it has to integrate with the modern technology for preparing the students for the future workforce, fostering critical thinking, and enhancing learning experience. Now, there are a couple of components that are coming over here that the term in the last couple of years you can come up with is design thinking, critical thinking, innovative thinking. Now, all these particular things which are coming up, if we now look at from the point of view of traditional education system, now, traditional education system often lags in updating the curricula. That's our experience, because in 41 years in the teaching area, I could see the time period I spent in this and the way we actually looked at the system itself, particularly in our state, in our country. But if we look at the fast changing technological landscape, it has got a huge impact on this. And at present, the buzzwords, all of you know, the subject like artificial intelligence, blockchain, data science are becoming absolutely essential in the modern careers, but are not sufficiently covered in many of our educational curricula. So updating curricula to reflect this current needs of the students, needs of the industry, needs of the stakeholders, all these things we have to understand is it will make, it has to ensure that the students acquire proper and relevant skills. Now, technology has democratized education by making learning resources available to a broader audiences. And this is what we have seen, that when we are talking about for a long period of time, from 2010 onwards, by the University Grants Commission, the major body which controls the higher education, regarding introduction of online systems. But if you look at from 2010 to 2020, though there are a lot of efforts taken by the University Grants Commission, the percentage of utilization of our online education thing is only 12%. So it's much, much less than what we are talking about. And there, what we could find that the online platforms, digital textbooks, and the e-learning models allow the students from diverse backgrounds to access the quality education. And this shift is particularly beneficial for students in remote areas or those with disabilities, as digital tools provide tailored solutions to their learning needs. Here comes one of the major controversy which started while we were talking about the digital divide. You know, when we are looking at this, our country, the internet facility availability across the country, or the availability of this type of digital technology to the remote areas, a huge question is there. So if that is not there, this digital divide is going to actually affect this transformative education. So we have to give a lot of stress to this. So every students, we have to think that they should learn the things at a different pace. We never thought about it earlier, but we started to thinking that we have to understand this reality. And each one of them has got unique strengths and weakness. The traditional classroom often fails to cater to individual learning needs. And that's why the adaptive learning technologies, which is powered by these new modern technologies, as I am mentioning, artificial intelligence, or the personalized learning experience, this is going to actually help the students progress and adjusting the content accordingly. Now, there actually comes the question of the importance of coupling of understanding, educating, and the job market. And when you look at the job market is becoming increasingly tech-driven, and with automation and artificial intelligence reshaping the employment opportunities. Now, educational institutions must equip the students with digital literacy, the problem solving, and computational thinking skills. And failing to do so risks leaving graduates ill-prepared for the demands of the modern careers. Now, intelligent tutoring system, this is something what we have to understand now, and as faculty members or everybody. Now the question comes about the whole pedagogy of learning is absolutely being changed. The pedagogy of learning being changed, so for what we have the teacher-centric learning, now we have to make it a student-centric learning. And to make it a student-centric learning, we have to understand that the evaluation process has also to be changed. So it's transforming education is not the means of education, availability of education system, but also the assessment of education, assessment and evaluation. All these things are very important component. Now, I'm sure that when the AI comes, immediately the students, in your mind, the chatbots and all these things are there. But if you look at this, these chatbots assist students with queries, while AI-driven analytics provide teachers with insights into students' performance, enabling data-driven interventions. This immersive learning experience, we said immersive learning experience, this powered by the virtual reality, and it's going to help the student grasp the complex subjects through interactive submissions, interactive simulations, interactive understandings. And there we have to understand that how this is going to help to completely change the way we used to have our education thing. Now, platforms like the Coursera, the Udemy, the Khan Academy, they have revolutionized the learning by providing the courses on various subjects from global experts. The students can get an opportunity to understand this from the global experts. And online education, it enables flexible learning and allowing students to upskill at their convenience. Again, here I want to mention about Partha Ghosh, and who actually mentioned a very interesting thing, that when we are looking at this education ecosystem, and over there, this particular cycle of learning, unlearning, relearning, this particular cycle is going to actually help the students to, and the teachers also, to modify ourselves for actually participating in this education ecosystem. The next very important thing, which to me is this gamified learning, and this is going to engage the students by incorporating elements of game design into educational content. The platforms like Kahoot, the Duolingo, is make learning enjoyable and encourage active participation. In fact, in Kolkata, one particular group is done for this whole village students in Bengali, and I found that very interesting one with respect to the science teaching, mathematics teaching, and I don't know how many of you have seen it, but I have seen it, the Tutopia. It's so good. If you can really get a chance to go through that Tutopia tutorials for the even for the primary level students, it was so exciting. Now, the combination of this traditional learning and the digital learning, the blended learning, it maximizes the benefits of both approaches. The schools can incorporate online modules alongside in-person instructions, which is normal, allowing the students to engage with materials at their own pace while receiving guidance from teachers. And the basic digital skills should be incorporated into the early education to ensure the students develop technological proficiency from a young age. The teaching coding, cybersecurity, and responsible internet usage prepares the students for an increasingly digital world. So despite the advancements, the digital divide, which remains a significant challenge, as I am mentioning, we have to understand this. With increased reliance on digital platforms, we have to think about how to safeguard the students, how to make the students to think in a critical fashion. So the educators, parents, and policymakers, they may resist adopting new technologies due to unfamiliarity or skepticism. But the change management strategies, including the workshops and awareness campaigns, can help to address concerns and encourage the widespread adoption. And the transformation of education to align with technological advancement is not merely an option, but a necessity. So embracing all the new technologies, all the new digital tools, we have to make ourselves ready, the workforce ready, and prepare the mindset ready also. So successful integration requires collaborative efforts from educators, policymakers, and technology providers. And so by implementing these strategic reforms and addressing the existing challenges, education can evolve into a dynamic and future-ready system. And that is going to prepare our students for success in this new digital age. With this, I just want to mention that we dreamt about transforming education, but now it's reality that transforming education, transformative education, it has got no other alternative, but we have to participate into it. We as parents, we as teachers, we as students, all stakeholders must understand, must accept this importance of this transformative education. Thank you. Namaskar.
That was such an insightful and inspirational talk. Sir, thank you so much. Sir, we need to... So, to honor Professor Dhruva-Jyoti, I would request Shri Sushil Poddar, President of CWBTA, Shri Vibhor Tandon ji and Shri Varad Rajan ji to please come on the dais. This is a small memento from us, sir, for your kind presence and sharing your insights. Thank you so much. Thank you. So my all young friends here, are you excited to move on to the journey of education and learnings? Yes? So I would request all of you to please come in the front. Please all of you move forward, because as we move on to the next panel, it is going to be very exciting, and with each panel you can feel the excitement and energy will increase. We already heard Dr. Partho Ghosh on making our students ready for the global market, and now we invite the auspicious and the August panel for this theme. I would like to invite speakers for the panel discussion. Dr. Ananda Mitra, he is from Wake Forest University. Dr. Swati Bose, Dr. Swati Basu, she is also from the Wake Forest University. आपकी तालियां थमनी नहीं चाहिए. All the young minds, please move forward. Please, I would request. Please come forward. Keep your phone on the silent mode. आप लोग जब तक सामने नहीं आएंगे, हम लोग का सेशन स्टार्ट नहीं होगा. Trust me on that. I would invite the panelist and moderator, Dr. Mohammed Datta. For the felicitation of this panel, I would request Shri Atul Singh ji to be on the dais. Mr. B. Sancheti ji, please come on the dais. Mr. Bardia, please come on the dais. So now our stage is ready, and I would request for the felicitations. Sorry for the inconvenience. So first I would request Dr. Swati Basu to be felicitated by Mr. J.L. Bardia. Dr. Ananda Mitra by Mr. B. Sancheti. Dr. Mohammed Datta by the ESG and Sustainability Director of MASA, Mr. Atul Singh. Your clappings will give energy to the audience and we will have a rocking panel discussion. So I'll hand over the entire panel now to Dr. Mohammed Atta, who will also introduce the speakers. Can we have one more cordless mic, please? If someone has the cordless mic. Cordless mic. Okay.
A very good afternoon to all present here. I'm Dr. Mohammed Atta, and I take an opportunity myself to do a self-introduction. I have been into academics for the last 20 years, done a lot of research, published papers and everything, and by 2020, finally I decided to do something on my own. And so, leaving a very comfortable, cushy job, I got into this venture, which unfortunately got slowed down because of COVID, but then again picked up from 2022. And right now I'm the co-founder of Devil You Chocolates and a proud entrepreneur and enjoying life. So thank you all for inviting me here. Thank you Masa for the invitation. Thank you Inadi so much for considering me. We have today as our esteemed panelists Dr. Ananda Mitra and Dr. Swati Basu. So let me briefly introduce them to you. Dr. Ananda Mitra is a professor in the Department of Communication at Wake Forest University, renowned for his extensive research in digital media and communication technologies. He has authored numerous publications exploring the intersection of technology and society. Notably, Dr. Mitra developed the concept of NARD, which is narrative bits, which examines how personal information shared on social media contributes to the digital narratives. His book, Digital DNA, Social Networking and You, delves into the concept, analyzing the implications of online personal data. Additionally, he is currently working on a manuscript titled Narrative Construction Surrounding Crisis Management, which is slated for publication by IGI Publications in 2025. Dr. Mitra's scholarly contributions have significantly advanced the understanding of digital communication and its societal impacts. Dr. Swati Basu is a research associate professor in the Department of Physics at Wake Forest University, specializing in experimental biophysics. Her research focuses on understanding blood flow regulation, particularly the role of nitric oxide and its interactions with the hemoglobin and other hemoproteins. Dr. Basu has co-authored several high-impact publications, including a recent study in Nature Chemical Biology titled Thiocatalyzed Formation of Nitric Oxide Ferroheme Regulates Intravascular NO Signaling, which explores novel mechanisms of nitric oxide stabilizing and its potential therapeutic applications in cardiovascular diseases. Her work significantly contributes to advancements in cardiovascular research and the broader field of biophysics. So thank you, Dr. Mitra, and thank you, ma'am, for being here today on the panel with me. And as we all know that the basic objective of today's conclave is to discuss about the preparation of students here now for the global market. So what I personally would like to take this discussion with both of you and know more from both of you is the collaborative role of the three major stakeholders in this whole process. The first and foremost being the students themselves. Second, the faculty members, the professors who are actually the guides, the mentors. And third, in spite of students and faculty members wanting, nothing can happen until and unless the institutions go ahead and contribute to the process. So I would actually first of all want to ask Dr. Mitra that given your exposure abroad, when you are discussing with students, with researchers outside or with practitioners outside, and you come back to India and discuss with practitioners and students here, what are the gaps that you have identified? We keep hearing that our students may not be prepared for the global market. So what are the gaps that you are identifying where we are falling short, our students are falling short, and are those gaps only in terms of theory or our curriculum, or is there something more to it in terms of maybe skills? So what's your take?
Right, thank you so much. First of all, I'd again like to thank all of the organizations involved in inviting Swati and me to this event, particularly Ina ma'am sitting right over there. And she started talking to me about this event some weeks ago, and I was really not supposed to be in Kolkata today. Swati was supposed to be, but it turned out that I am here, and so I'm glad to be here. To answer the question, it puts us in a very interesting situation when you ask what the gap is, and you phrase the gap within those three vectors or those three domains. Let me start with the students. I think one of the things that I have seen, and I think Swati will agree, because I have been and we've been in the American curriculum for such a long time, and over those years I've seen the curriculum particularly, and I have a lot of young people in here, some high school students it seems like, and some college students. The real difference I think is not a gap, it's a difference, is the exposure of the utilization of the theory in actually applying it in problem solving, in doing things that would not require rote learning. I mean, I went through the academic system in India. Academic system in India, and I have benefited immensely from that rote learning, as well as my learning at IIT Kharagpur. But what I experience, and what I know many of you will experience if you were to get into that, studying abroad, for instance, is distancing from the rote and having to do what often is called critical thinking, and having to make decisions based on the information that we have shared. And this is the point that the Vice Chancellor Upadhyay just shared about transformations in learning, and that's what it is. So I'm going to let Swati go into this.
Yes, and to just add to that, I would say from my experience, from my experience, so I got my basic education in undergraduate college, in Presidency College. And I studied botany honors. But when I went to the US, I realized that I did not have much lab experience. So being a scientist, you need to have experience in doing experiments and then writing up your experiment in the form of, a lab report. I'd never done that. So that was the first thing that I faced in the US as a gap. I did not have the experience of writing papers, so I started doing that. as coursework. So the coursework allowed me to get that experience there. So that's one thing that came to mind. And other thing is presentation of your work. So once I started doing research and I started producing data and writing out my paper, I would have to present it in front of an audience and, showcase my work. Make sure people knew what I was saying and what I was doing, make it important in their minds, get across to to my audience. So that was the second gap that I had to learn. So basically a lot of self-learning was involved. So I think that's one of the things.
The point that Swati just made about self-learning, that I think is one of the critical aspects of studying in the transformative system. It is no longer going to be the case that me as a teacher, or many of our teachers in this room, is going to stand in front of you guys as students and say, hey, this is what happened and this is what the facts are. You don't need us. We are redundant. You can get that as easily from any generative AI as our VC was just talking about. But you need, not so much as the gap, the transformation is, how do you interpret that and how do you teach yourself that? How do you understand what's going on? I'll tell you, we don't have too much time today, I gotta go catch a flight. But I'll tell you a story which I think illustrates the points that we've been making. I teach a course, and my young friends over here, give me a sense, I want to make this interactive. I see a lot of people with ties in the back. You didn't come from school. Can you shout out your grade level? Anybody here in 10th grade or class 10? Show of hands, guys. Class 10, class 11? Yeah, good. Class 12? All right. So, I teach a lot of students who come straight from class 12 into college, and it's called a first-year seminar. As a quick story, I was teaching a course, and as in any course, and my teaching friends will identify with this, I give them readings, right? They're supposed to do the readings, and I would test them on that, on a quiz. There's one kid, he got a D in the first quiz, got a D in the second quiz, and he got an A in the third quiz. And the fourth one, I give a quiz every week. After the fourth quiz, I told him, look, you are doing something, and I don't understand what you're doing. I want to learn from you. So I took him out for coffee, and here's what he told me. He said, look, I take all your readings, pass them up to ChatGPT, has it generate all the possible questions, and guess what? When you write your questions, you also eventually generate the similar questions, and so I know the questions, and I just learn the questions. So what's my role at that point? To finish the story, I said, all right, guys, I understand how you're using the system. Let me change the narrative. From that point on, all my questions came straight from my lecture, not from the readings. So unless you're paying attention in class, you'd bomb it. And that started to happen. So my point is, our role has changed. You asked about teachers. I'm sorry, I'm taking up your time. The third one you talked about is the institution. The institution can no longer remain in the vacuum of either national, regional, or in any form. We are interconnected. I had the good opportunity, and the part of the reason I'm here, it turned out so that was, by chance, an American institution is connecting with an Indian institution, and I have been a part of that process and witnessed that happen. And that's the kind of stuff we're looking at, and our kids over here, these kids over here, they should have that aspiration. I think one of the speakers talked about dreams and aspirations. Aspire to go outside of the comfort zone. It's the comfort zone that actually is the troubling thing. I've talked too much, go ahead.
In fact, when you were talking, it just reminded me that I always used to say this during my college days with the students, that we should no longer be called the teachers, we should be called the facilitators. Because the information that we are supposed to share with the student is already there, it's out there. first from the internet, second through the AI tools. Now, what the students feel confused is about how to utilize that knowledge, because it's like an ocean. There's huge out there. Which part is good, which part is relevant, which part should be clubbed with which part, and then prepared into a paper or a project or whatever. That is where we come in as the facilitators, trying to make them understand the application of the theories. So this is where I feel even the curriculum has to change, even the curriculum has to keep adapting itself to the changing technology. Like as you rightly said, that if ChatGPT gives us all the answers, what's the point in taking an examination? We understand that students already will manage the answers. They may not know the answers, but they will manage the answers. So, in fact, students sitting out here, let me ask you, is there any one of you who's here on their own free will, or are you here because your institution wanted you to? Anyone who's here who was curious that yes, I should go and listen?
Alright, that's really fantastic. Can we have an audience, Mike? Is there an audience possible? Because there's a young man over there who raised you raised your hand. Can you tell us why you're here?
I'm just curious to know how to get better.
Better in what?
Better in life.
That's not good enough. Give me more specifics.
Learn from you guys.
So you really feel like we can teach you?
So you want to learn from us?
Yes.
Very good.
What do you want to know?
Everything you people know.
Alright, so this is one of the issues that, thank you so much. What's your name, young man?
Tanmay Chakravarti.
Tanmay. Thank you, Tanmay, for participating. The point here is, are we in a position in the global marketplace to be considered that important that we can actually deliver that learning? One of the processes that institutionally what could also be would be changing is the site of the learning. This is a proscenium learning, so we are already in a position of power, physically sitting on this. I'd much rather be down there, right? So those are the kinds of transformation. The global marketplace will require that. And you know,
Yes, and I think that. So one of the things that came to mind is that in the institutions, if teachers could provide some time for advising for careers, figure out from the student what their real interests are so that they can be guided towards, a path that would bring their interest forward and show them a way towards, a career that would be beneficial for them and at the same time be interesting to them. So I'm thinking, of advising, sessions by teachers. And also the other thing I was thinking about was students should, have some idea about what they want to do. So, you look at yourself 5 years from today, okay, and think about what you want to do, what are your interests, and try to get the best type of, fundamental education on those interests. So for example, if you want to do you want to go into a biotech firm and become a biotech, scientist, what you would want to do is make sure that you get your fundamental education on, say, physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics, okay, so that you have that basis, that strong foundation. And following that, you would want to, talk to your peers, join, like for example, join some society, which is a scientific society, go to conferences. So, you would need funding for that. So you need to talk to your teachers about how you can get there. You can go to webinars, based on, the career that you're looking for, just watch experts in the field, talk about, their research, their findings, or, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is plan ahead. Think about what you want to really do, what you're really interested in, Don't go with what everybody's doing. Think about your own interests, your own strengths, and make sure that you can use those strengths to go forward.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Dr. Vasu. In fact, when people ask me that coming from being a marketing professor or the administrator in a business school, how come I started my business in making chocolates? Like, how are they even related? That's exactly where I feel the pain, that if we had understood that teaching in a business school or facilitating marketing classes and marketing a product absolutely goes hand in hand, and actually applying the theories which I have been facilitating in the classes. And this is exactly the transformation that should happen even with the students. With probably a lot of professors should be incubating the students' idea and then facilitating into that. So that's where exactly is the mindset gap. So I have always felt this, that maybe 60-70% effort needs to be put in terms of mindset, and maybe the rest will fall in place one after the other. So what's this difference, like since Dr. Mitra has to rush, just before you leave, what's the difference in terms of mindset that you have observed in India with the parents, with the students, that compared to abroad? Like while they are growing up, through their high school, what's the difference in terms of how parents are building up their mindsets in the students here and how parents are doing the same out there? And in fact, honestly speaking, global market doesn't mean they have to go abroad and work. Global market is even sitting in India, they are working for global markets. So market is no longer a local thing, it's global. So where does this mindset thing difference comes in?
Let me try that just for a real quick moment, because I do interact with young students in India as well as young students in the US. And by young, I literally mean anybody, there's a group back there who said they're in 12th grade, there are groups from high school, from first year of college. The American mindset, the white American or the original American mindset has emphasized success in life. You do something, you set your goals, like Swati said, and achieve that. It could be you get an associate degree and become a fantastic plumber, who, by the way, makes much more money than I do. The other mindset, the non-American mindset, you see this in Chinese mindset, people from China, people from India, is success in a grade. The grade becomes more important than anything else. Learning goes out the window. And that is indeed what we fight. What we fight in our classrooms, I ask these kids, I have a first year seminar, 16 kids, the 3 of Indian origin, 5 of Chinese origin, the rest local. And I ask them, tomorrow you call your parents and you tell them, I'm dropping out of college. The Chinese kids will say they'll kill us. The Indians say they'll kill us. The Americans would say, well, they would not like it, but they'll listen to us, and that's the key. That's the rub. Parents have to listen to their children. The parents do not know the best. So I'm gonna, by the way, we have one kid, and we let him do a bunch of things. Now we think, oh, we should run it on that.
Well, the other thing that I also wanted to bring up is, all of you should, all of you budding scientists, social media folks, or, whichever area you want to go to, you should want to, have, for example, you must have heard about LinkedIn, one of the social media platforms which are, oriented towards education, work, industry, corporate, whatever. Make yourself visible, okay? Put your resume out there. Prepare your resume, first of all, and build on that resume. Also, I would say, build your resume and go to conferences. I think that is really important. Create the network so that you can, talk to people of at different levels. Okay. And what else? Are there any questions for us? I think that will be something that.
In fact, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask the audience maybe one question.
Yeah, so just before that, for the interactive audience, we have special gifts. I would just like to invite Tanmoy, who was the person who first answered, sir.
Yeah.
We have a small gift for you. Come, run. Now we can take up the Q&A.
Yeah, I wish we had a little bit more time, but it feels like The Sound of Music. If anybody remember that
Oh,
movie.
Ranjit, Tanmoy, run. People will not wait for you to come.
Could you share your name, college, and what you are studying?
My name is Tanmoy Chakraborty. I am currently doing my MBA program from IEM Institute, Salt Lake.
I gotta say one thing. This is what got me confused, because Tanmoy is wearing an uniform, and I thought he was in school, as in not in college, in school. You know. Yeah.
We would really like people to ask questions.
Yeah, one or two questions we could take from the audience.
Yes, ma'am.
Specific.
You can shout it out. I'll repeat it.
What's the difference between the curriculum of American curriculum and Indian curriculum? Which one is a better one?
In which level are you talking about?
Okay. So, the difference, I'll give it a theoretical answer. In the case of the Indian curriculum, primarily it is a top-down curriculum. You know, the government decides, the state decides, and so forth and so on. At the high school level, or in the K-12 system in the United States, we still have that, but teachers have a fair amount of freedom in what they want to do. Second, kids have a lot more choices in what they can choose to do. For example, over here at class, I believe it's now at class 10, you stream them off, you know. You decide, well, they're going to do social science, they're going to do STEM or whatever. There is a little bit more freedom. The idea of freedom is basically fundamentally what is different in the education system, I would say, at K-12 or even the college level.
Yeah, there are a lot more options available earlier in life, you know, in their schooling life.
Others, thank you so much for the question.
We have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Foreign countries, like you said, they think over. So how should this change our mindset from the foreign culture to Indian culture?
Are you suggesting that their thinking over option is a better option? Is that, do you want others to think like that, right? Well, it's not so much about education. It is about overall how we, so let me give you some theory, just a theoretical answer to that. Hall, quite a bit, there's a gentleman called Hall, he came up with two concepts. He said some cultures are individualistic cultures. Other cultures are collectivist cultures. Individualistic cultures like Western Europe and the United States are more willing to allow the individual to make the decision. Collectivist cultures like ours and in Asia are more concerned about what the collective will think about a decision. The parent will say, I'll kill you, not because the child's dropping out, but the parent will have to answer to the neighbors, what happened to your kid? He's out of college? The individualist system will not do that. Listen guys, this, as I said, is like Sound of Music. It's 12:41. I gotta run, catch a flight. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Friends, let's have a lot of energy in our class so that Sir comes again and again on being invited by us. I'm sure you really like the session today, yes? Yes. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And the organizers have our contacts. Feel free to get in touch with us. I'll be back in early part of March. I'd love to continue the conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you. And now we move on to the second panel. Before moving on, sir, we have small gifts for you from our support partners, Link and tonic. Now the excitement is building up, right? So जैसे जैसे excitement बढ़ता है तो हम लोग का panel भी change होता है and now we are going to have a fireside chat. Ready for the fireside chat? And while I invite the panelists for the fireside chat, the theme being Bengal, the center of science learning. Bengal has always been popular for science subjects, and I would like to invite Professor Anupam Basu from Raja Ramanna Chair, Jadavpur University. Can we have a big round of applause for him? And Mr. Kaushik Bhattacharya, CEO, Ranjia Digital. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Kaushik Bhattacharya, who is a dynamic leader and a visionary in the digital media space. Mr. Bhattacharya is a certified independent director, seasoned management consultant, and the CEO of Ranjia Digital, a promising digital media startup. With his vast experience and strategic insights, he has been instrumental in driving innovation and growth in the digital landscape. We are privileged to have him with us today to share his valuable perspectives. Welcome, Mr. Kaushik Bhattacharya. Welcome, sir. To honor and facilitate our guests, I would request Dr. Varadarajan again to please come on the dais. Dr. Anindita Mitra. We have esteemed guests here. Madam Mitra. Okay. I would also request the representatives of Central Bank of India, if they are here, please come on the dais. I would request Mrs. Sangeeta Sureka, who is the member coordinator for MASA, please come on the dais. Anupam Basu. Hello.
Hello. See, wonderful. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. Hello. First of all, Madam, wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. I don't deserve this. And I'm actually privileged to have, sharing dais with Professor Basu. And I also take this privilege to read a part of his profile. Actually, his profile is so rich. I take your permission to read a part of it actually. Professor Anupam Basu has been a senior professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Kharagpur, and the Director of National Institute of Technology, Durgapur. He is presently Dr. Raja Ramanna Chair Professor, Jadavpur University, and Distinguished Honorary Professor at SNU and also Shiv Nada University. He is well-known researcher in the areas of AI, cognitive systems, embedded systems, and language processing. He has led a number of development projects for technology-enabled education, including school education and education for physically disabled. He is also visiting faculty in the University of California, Irvine, University of Dortmund, Germany, and at the University of Gulf, Ontario, Canada. So he has also worked on the natural language and translation, Unicode in format. Today's topic for our fireside chat is extremely relevant in today's context, because recently we have seen that in the Nature Index, Kolkata has been rated in global 200 cities as 84th and topmost in India as a city where science culture and studying science is most prominent. So can you have a big round of applause for our own city? So starting from this, it gives me a lot of wonder how exactly we have this legacy. We talk about, Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bosu and so many, great science saints this city has produced. Nobel laureates, and we have institutions like, people mostly talk about Presidency and St. Xavier's and all, but we hardly talk about cultivation of science and chemical biology. They have so many patents. So sir, I was just wondering, you have a rich experience in working with students and working on this subject of science. We may have received this award, which is a very encouraging note for this city. But what is the current situation amongst the students of Bengal in pursuing science as compared to pursuing technology? And why, what is the current situation?
Thanks for the question, but I'd like to modify the statement a little bit. The nature recognition was based on the number of research publications that came out from the city of Calcutta. And when we look at the research publications that are coming out now, that is being done by the people who had their schooling long time back. And it is their results that we are reaping now and are being recognized. We had a great legacy of science, particularly in Calcutta, because of Calcutta University. All of you are talking of Jagadish Chandra Bose, but Meghnad Saha and Satyendranath Bose also did wonders. And I personally know, I don't know how many of the students read the science magazines like Science Reporter, which comes out even today. I don't know how many of you read it, but at our time, there was a magazine that used to come out in Bangla called Gyano Vigyan, which was initiated by Satyendranath Bose. And that was a household affair. Alright? So we had the role model. At that time, our role models were these people. Okay? Even in the locality, if there was, in my locality, there was a scientist who used to work in cultivation of science. He was adored by the local people, Para. Alright? So that was the scenario, and we had a lot of bright people, not only from Calcutta, but also from the fringes like Midnapur and other places, which produced fantastic scientists. And their results are reflected in the glory of nature. Okay? But your second part of the question, that what is the status now? Was that the second part?
What is the status now? Because you closely work with students. And
Yes. Now, basking in the glory is one thing. And we, the Bengalis particularly, and Indians in general, have got the
practice of being complacent by basking in the glories. Unfortunately, the scenario has changed. Today, except Jadavpur University, Presidency St. Xavier's, and IITs, of course, other good colleges are not getting general science students. If you ask any college teacher, you will find that the entry in chemistry or physics was blank, or at most, I know a few colleges where at most 4 students took up physics honors, 2 maths honors, like that. So that is the scenario, and in Kolkata now and West Bengal, and if that scenario is not changed, the days will not be the same again.
Sir, we were just talking, sitting there together. You spoke about Midnapur, and a very poor boy from Midnapur came to study Kolkata, and then he went up to becoming Professor C.P. Bhaumik, who owns so many patents, and he became a great scientist also. Sir, one question on behalf of all the students here, which is coming to my mind repeatedly. Why should a student today pursue science, then engineering and technology, when incentive of career, money is so high, they can go to IT, they can get a quick career. But in science, if they pursue, the career curve is bit longer. By the time they do their doc and postdoc, they reach the age of 27 and 30, whereas their contemporary friends from school and colleges already have a car and flat and get married and earning handsome in IT. So how exactly we motivate them, this batch of students, to pursue science?
See, there are 2 parts of the question. One is monetizing what you learn. Now, as a professor of IIT, I used to go to the fish market every alternate day, and the person who sold me fish earned much, much more than me. Alright? But I preferred teaching. Knowing fully well, and say, for example, when we chose teaching, at our time teaching was not by compulsion, it was by choice. And when we chose teaching, I'm giving an example, as an example, the salary in the industries were much higher. But we felt that we would like to teach. We had the passion for teaching, and we followed our passion. So it's a question, if you equate everything to monetization, then there is no point. Then you just make a scale and see, start with the highest salary requirement, then the next highest, where you can fit it. Then there is no importance of knowledge, no importance of choice according to the heart. So in order to make, rather let me rephrase your question in this way, if we want to bring science closer to the heart of the students, what should be done? And why is it no longer close to the heart of the students? There are several reasons. One is in the West Bengal curriculum, I'd say, and overall it's a bad curriculum. Because we have got the habit of now pumping all segments of knowledge in the young minds that will be monetizable. So in class 4, we start teaching Java. I asked one school principal was priding herself that in my school I have introduced Java and Python in class 4. I said, when do your students learn Abul Tabul? She said they don't. Now if that be so, if you cut out their world and put up walls in which we follow for money, that's a different proposition altogether. But if you want to talk about knowledge, then you should give the cow to chew and digest, the students to learn and digest. Putting in too much material so that, unless they do this, they will miss the bus of quantum computing. How many passengers will the bus of quantum computing hold? Give them the sky and let them find. That thing is missing. Number two, the reading materials, the way the things are being taught in schools. I particularly, I'm sure none of you are from Bengali medium. Is there anyone from Bengali medium here?
So many
in Bengali medium, right? So, will you give me a frank answer? Do you like the textbook that is given from the board? Don't look at the teacher, just look at me and just tell you, do you like the language?
পাঠ্য বইটা কি ইন্টারেস্টিং?
পাঠ্য বইটা ভালো লাগে? পাঠ্য বইটা পড়ে বুঝতে পারো সব?
ভালো স্টুডেন্ট স্যার।
হ্যাঁ, তাহলে তো আমার প্রপোজিশনটা ফেল করে গেল। কিন্তু আমি স্কুলের বাচ্চাদের পড়াই, I teach them. ওরা গ্র্যাজুয়েশন করছে। আপনি স্কুলে পড়ান? আপনার কি মতামত? That's the reason. That's the reason that textbooks are not attractive. I found a fantastic rule that if in the portal you have 20 students enrolled, you will be given 20 textbooks and not a single textbook for the teacher unless she specially does a special requisition. Well, that sort of things are happening. Time? Okay. So my point is, summarizing, it is the reading material. Number 3, the way science is taught. Science has to be taught by doing. In most of the schools today, laboratory classes are not held properly. In most of the schools in 11-12, you don't have science teachers. Subsequently, laboratories are not there. Subsequently, students are not going. We got at Jadavpur University, for example, in the physics department, 80% students used to come from Bengali medium or vernacular schools.
Sir, taking cue from your suggestions, at the 150th anniversary of Ramakrishna Mission, they organized Science and Technology Innovation, Science Innovation for students. So can this kind of thing encourage people to innovate and think about science, flourish the culture of science studies?
Absolutely. There are activity-based learning programs that are being done. If the students are allowed to innovate, if the students are allowed to go around and find the things, the problems, and come up with some solutions for that, and do the subsequent science study, physics or chemistry or whatever they do, then they will feel that. People, in the earlier session, somebody was talking about rote learning. Rote learning is one thing, but unless I get the fun out of it, I'll not love that.
Sir, Madam is signaling, but before we conclude,
we must take some question and answers. I have some
for the audience. Yes.
For the audience which speaks up, we will give them gifts.
Correct. So, I would really like to take a couple of questions. Can anybody raise hands? Any student? Anything relating to studying science and the reward of, sir, please.
I would like to ask Mr. Bose, from the, say, junior school to middle school to senior school, as a child progresses, how do you think that as parents at home, the child's mind can be inculcated towards learning by doing, as you were telling, learning from nature and the different things. So what do you suggest? What are the things that should be done?
Thank you. First thing that I'd suggest to a parent is don't force a student to study science. Let the child have the fun. He will like music, he will like literature, he will like history. Give him all the choices and select from them. Now, once the selection is done, provide them to the best of your capacity as much interesting materials and scope of implementing them. For example, if you find your student, your son or daughter is interested in history, as a parent you must make it a point to make relevant books available and also take the child to a tour in the regions, right, that are there. Similarly for science. If many of the students are interested in science, give them there are very low cost equipments being made available. And I'm the president of one such organization, Science Communicators Forum, and the Biggan Moncho and many other people actually do that. They provide very low cost activity material with which the students can do hands-on of physics, chemistry at home.
Anyway, thank you very much. Actually, should we take more questions, ma'am?
So we will have more questions at the end of the session. अच्छा short में बोलिए चलिए.
So in the new education policy, I can take science, I can take material. How
Yes.
do you mix?
Yes. You can not only that you can mix, you can take humanities and science together. There are so many combinations. And also one last encouraging thing from my own industry experience of so many years, I am now seeing pure science people are also getting a lot of rewards from the industry, because industry is going in a direction where lot of advancements is happening, and they are preferring people not only from engineering background, also from science, general science background.
I think we can clap on this because it's a very good shift.
Very good shift happening. Preference is not only because many average people are going for engineering, and many bright students are also going for pure science studies. So there is a shift also.
The industry today, we are talking of biotechnology, we are talking of nanoscience, we are talking of quantum science.
You told me nuclear chemistry.
Yeah, nuclear chemistry, quantum chemistry, all those things are being enriched and empowered by science students. So in the schools, that reminds me of one thing, that in the schools, such avenues and such popular talks should be organized more frequently. So the students come to know that it is not only engineering or medicine, but these are the avenues in which a scientist can also monetize his knowledge.
Just to end, I have put my son for pure science study instead of engineering, and credit goes to this kind of people who are inspiring students to go for pure science and worship science actually. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. Can we have a big round of applause for today's fact-check speakers? And to give them a small memento from our side, I would request Dr. Anindita Mukherjee to please come on the dais, and Mr. Shravan Kumar Dhanuka from Radhakrishna Tire Private Limited. Okay. May I have Mrs. Ira Shah on the dais to give them a small memento? And while that is happening, may I request the speakers from this session from the audience to just put a raise of hands so that our volunteer can give them the tickets that we have for them. I think Jayantu sir from here, from MCKB. Okay.
लाइट